Hi, I'm Chip Duncan, and I'm the Executive Director of the Veterans Memorial Museum. This is our main gallery, where we have 85 display cases that tell the stories of our veterans from the Revolutionary War to modern-day Iraq and Afghanistan. In each of these displays are stories of individual veterans, and we are simply trying to tell and preserve their lives even after they are gone. Each year, the Veterans Memorial Museum receives hundreds of artifacts from individuals bringing in their parents' or their grandparents' belongings. Unfortunately, even with over 9,000 square feet of display space, we just don't have enough room to put them all on display. This is our back room, our secret room, where we keep all of the artifacts we've ever received. And all of these artifacts, unfortunately, end up stored in these boxes because we just don't have enough time or space to put them all on display. So we've created this online video series called Out of the Box, where we will unpack one of these boxes and meet the veteran and hear their stories from the artifacts that are encased within the box. We hope you will join us here at the Veterans Memorial Museum so that you can hear the stories of our men and women who have served our country in wartime and peace so that they shall not be forgotten. And so we're going to go into the back room right now and we're going to start opening up a box and find out exactly what's in it and what neat artifacts there are. So come on. This is a story of a small town, high school sweethearts, a world war. It's a story with love, danger, and a full life. So this is the box of James Davis, and we're going to go ahead and see what's inside. Our story begins in the small town of Centralia, Washington, and it revolves around two people, Eileen Ellis and James Davis. James was born on October 8, 1922. He was born to his parents, James and Edna Davis. Sometime in the 1930s, his parents divorced, and he went to go live with his mother on Pearl Street in Centralia. His mother took on odd jobs and boarders to help make meager ends meet. Across from town, Eileen Ellis, or Susie as everyone called her, was born on January 25, 1922. James and Susie both attended elementary school in Centralia, and both of them grew up with an appreciation for music. James played the trumpet, and Susie played the cello. He also played football and was active in the theater department. In 1940, for his senior year, James was a member of the Centralia High School football team, and this is kind of his letterman's sweater. And Centralia High School in 1940 was not doing so good. They had 9 games and they only won 3 of them, but the most important game to win was the Turkey Day game, and that was the game against Chehalis and Centralia won that game, and this may be actually the winning football from that game, who knows. Susie was beautiful. She was a drum majorette for the band, was an actor in many of the school plays, and this is Eileen's drum majorette uniform. Both James and Susie graduated with diplomas. So these are the diplomas, the high school diplomas of James Davis and Eileen Ellis. James enrolled in classes at Centralia Junior College, where classes were held on the 3rd floor of the very same high school. There was an initiation process that all of the freshman college students had to go through before starting classes. James endured the humiliation and rite of passage. In 1941, the classes consisted of psychology, evolution, debate, zoology, chemistry, physics, engineering, surveying, and even aviation. James found a love of airplanes, and so he focused his studies on aviation, and eventually even received his airman certificate on June of 1941. On December 7th, 1941, our nation was attacked by the forces of Imperial Japan, and this very event launched our country into the Second World War. Like every city across the nation, Centralia was thrown into the fervor of war as well. Able-bodied men volunteered or were drafted for service. Mothers and wives said goodbye to their loved ones, while those who stayed behind played their part in the war effort. scrap metal drives, buying war bonds, victory gardens, civil defense, and employing hundreds of thousands of workers for the war industry. Just south of Centralia, Boeing even formed a factory to build wing sections of the B-17 Flying Fortress. James was in his second year of college when the war broke out. He had a deferment from the draft for being in college. He completed his studies in aviation and finally received his diploma on May 22nd of 1942. Just 4 weeks after graduating, he enlisted with the Washington State Guard and served for nearly a year as a private with Company L of the 4th Infantry. Love bloomed and blossomed during the wartime, and on August 31st of 1942, James and Susie got hitched at the Presbyterian Church in Centralia. They took a small apartment on South Tower Avenue and began their lives together. James found work as a truck driver, while Susie gave time to the war effort as a telephone operator. As James served in the State Guard, he made a request to transfer to the Aviation Cadet Program. Eventually, he separated from the State Guard to enter the Naval Reserve. Once James had done this, the Army took notice and then inducted him shortly after that into the Army Air Corps. He trained as an aerial gunner and radio operator for over a year before he was shipped to the China-Burma-India Theater of Operations in October of 1944. James was assigned to the 12th Bombardment Group, the Black Angels of the 10th Air Force. The 12th Bombardment Group had arrived in Burma earlier in the year after participating in the North Africa and Italian campaigns. The group primarily flew the B-25 Mitchell medium bomber. From October of 1944 to August of 1945, James was busy. He flew over 63 combat missions attacking Japanese targets in China and Taiwan. On his 40th mission with the Black Angels, his B-25 was hit by enemy fire. The pilot was able to limp the wounded bird away from the engagement, but eventually the crew was forced to bail out of the stricken bird. All of the crew luckily managed to parachute to safety to the jungle, where they were eventually aided by local natives and returned to their base of operations. As a memento, James kept the parachute he had used and sent it home to his wife for safekeeping. And what's amazing is we actually have the parachute from that mission where he had to bail out and then hike through the jungle. For James's bravery in the incident, he was awarded his first of 2 air medals. Sergeant James Davis was eventually awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross for successfully completing more than 300 hours of combat flying. Now, he received his oak leaf cluster. This is his medal bar right here, is this ribbon right here. This is his air medal, and the oak leaf cluster signifies that it's a second award of the air medal. Ground and flight crews worked endlessly to keep the pressure on the Japanese forces in the months that followed. On August 6, 1945, the first of 2 atomic weapons was dropped on Hiroshima, and 3 days later on Nagasaki. These events eventually brought the Second World War to a complete and total end. On August 25th of 1945, Sergeant James Davis had enough points to come home, and he boarded a ship bound for the States. On October 5th, he mustered out of the Army Air Force at Fort Lewis. James and his wife eventually settled in Portland, Oregon, where James worked in the trucking industry. Unfortunately, their love affair was cut short when James passed away in January of 1981. But Susie kept herself busy. She was very active in her community until the very day she passed in April of 2011 at the age of 89. Thank you for joining us for our first episode of Out of the Box. I hope you've enjoyed opening this little time capsule into understanding a little bit about James Davis's life, along with his girlfriend and later his wife Eileen, and looking through the artifacts and learning about what life was like back in Centralia, but also what was going on in the Pacific and some of the things that were going on with our Army Air Crew and the 10th Air Force. Join us next time for Out of the Box.